songs, let me tell you about a friend. It's Craig LeBlanc where the good times never end. Talking Parks and Rec, it's a show you gotta know. Welcome one and all to the Daily Parks and Rec Show. It's the Daily Parks and Rec Show.
And so I think the more that I think about leadership, the more I think about just the personal disciplines of, you know, how I show up at work, what I bring to work. So your job is to have just try to be as even keel as possible, right?
Right.
Provide feedback. We're human, so that's difficult. But on your bad days, you apologize, you take ownership of it. On your good days, you give credit and you encourage your team. The goal is to be consistent so people know that you are consistent. Consistency is key in organizations. So I think as humans, you know, we really desire consistency.
All right, we are live again on this Christmas week as we roll towards the end of 2025. I have now, who I consider a close friend now, Justin Cutler from City of Atlanta. Ever since we connected, I feel like I've known him forever. It's funny.
Except my name is Justin Cutler, but
what did I say? Did I say that? Oh my gosh! Yeah, my brain's just sorry. It's Monday. All right, but before we get started, I did want to thank one of our earliest sponsors, Outdoor Link. They have, and I've actually used them before, back in a former lifetime when I used to manufacture LED lights and stuff. But Outdoor Link, you can turn your whole city off and on with the flip of a cell phone. So you can turn water fountains, splash pads, baseball fields, parking lots, and their user interface is so intuitive. I actually took a tour of their factory. So we're partnering with them to make a whole show, a weekly show about smart cities and all the technology that cities are bringing in. And fortunately, they were one of my early sponsors, and they've been a big supporter of the show. And so we made a little promo for them. So if you need anything like that, just hit me up on LinkedIn. I'll get you in touch with the right rep over there. And then after that, I'll play a little quick promo about how other strategic partners are participating and helping us to build the first media company for Parks and Recreation. So play these two, and then we'll come right back and start with Justin.
In today's parks and recreation industry, communication, safety, and efficiency go hand in hand. That's where Outdoor Link comes in, delivering smart technology that empowers city departments and community planners to do more, smarter. Outdoor Link's platform connects and automates everything that keeps your parks running smoothly, from lighting and locks to signage, water features, Wi-Fi, and digital advertising. Control and schedule park lights for safety and energy savings. Remotely manage facility access. Update digital displays in real time. Coordinate fountains and splash pads. Provide public connectivity. And even run community or sponsorship campaigns on digital screens. All from one simple, unified platform, giving you real-time control, data, and cost efficiency. For parks and recreation agencies, that means safer spaces, smarter resource use, faster responses, and stronger community engagement. And behind every great park story is great infrastructure. That's why Outdoor Link proudly supports DPRS Media Company, helping the Daily Parks and Rec Show amplify the voices of professionals shaping our communities every day. Outdoor Link, smart, connected solutions for parks, recreation, and beyond.
Are you a vendor, brand, or service provider ready to connect with the heartbeat of local communities? At DPRS Media Co., we tell the stories shaping parks and recreation across America. Through podcasts, live streams, videos, and newsletters, we reach frontline leaders, city directors, and decision makers every single week. From youth sports and facilities to programming and policy, our audience is your audience. Sponsoring or partnering with DPRS Media Co. puts your brand in front of the professionals who build, budget, and buy for their communities. Launching a new product? Growing your presence in public spaces? Targeting cities, counties, or departments? DPRS is your trusted media partner. Whether you're in software, turf, aquatics, robotics, smart cities, or special events, partnering with DPRS puts your brand in the story. With commercials, interviews, social campaigns, newsletters, and live shows, we're your media team. Partner with us and grow your impact in the $200 billion parks and rec industry. DPRS Media Co. Stories that move Parks and Rec forward. Your audience is here. Let's meet them.
All right, Justin. I don't even know where to get started with you because I feel like I could write a book with you. Maybe let's just start to, how you got into Parks and Rec back in the early days, maybe even high school, college. What kind of kid were you growing up?
Yeah. Well, growing up, I grew up in Washington State. I grew up in Issaquah, Washington, predominantly. And yeah, I just started hiking and getting in the outdoors at an early age. My parents would go explore on the weekends, Mount St. Helens, different Tiger Mountain Natural Resource Area. In high school, I did an internship with the city of Issaquah where I was working with the trails coordinator, and I created a map for the Tiger Mountain Natural Resource Area that was managed by the state and by the city of Issaquah. And yeah, I just started getting to know people. I also worked at a summer camp called Camp Sambika, where I was the cook, and eventually was led outdoor leadership program. As part of that effort, had an internship there too, wrote a grant, got some bike helmets. So started in Park and Rec or just camp pretty young. And then I went to Washington State University, where I got a degree in recreation administration and leisure studies. And I think, like many people that get degrees in parks and recreation, you're often asked the question of like, so what do you do? Like play with stuff all day, And it was pretty comical when I would show up to lunch and I would have like the latest arts and craft project that we'd make my freshman year. And, you get razzed a little bit, but you're learning about leadership, right? You're learning about how to lead a group, how to get a group's attention, how to create arts and crafts, how to create something meaningful for people. And really enjoy just giving back, building relationships. My mom was a teacher. My dad did financial planning. But I think I always had that heart of public service and creating amazing opportunities for young people and old people to build relationships and just live happy, healthy lives. So yeah, that's where I got my start, was really at a young age and doing camping ministries and working, and had a couple different internships. So that led then into a career in Parks and Recreation with the city of Portland. I led an outdoor playground program. So I was responsible for, again, creating arts and crafts projects, helping young people stay active during the summer. I was at Argay Park up by the Portland airport, and I could tell what time of day it was by which planes were flying over. So I think even now at like 3:45, FedEx and UPS typically flew over. I knew I had about another hour and a half with the young people. So it was fun to understand air traffic and kids. And then after that, got a job with the city of Wilsonville as a recreation coordinator. And that's really kind of how my career started, and just plugged into the different professional organizations. So the Oregon Recreation Parks Association has been really influential in my career. And just thinking about, anybody starting out in Parks and Recreation, I strongly recommend that they plug into to their state professional organization, as it's an opportunity to give back. It's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to make those connections and network, which I found really valuable for me in my career, and still, interact with those people and people that I met through ORPA regularly.
How old were you when you started to get involved in the state associations?
I think I was 22.
Oh my goodness, that is young. How was it? Was your department just so big, or did you find a way to get there yourself, or did you just have?
No, it was really small, and that's why I needed to connect with people. Like Wilsonville at the time, I think it was like 20,000 people.
Yeah.
And I was the recreation coordinator for kind of 0 to 55, and in college you learn kind of the college side of it, and I think then reality hits you in the real world, and you have to quickly get up to speed. And I think building those relationships with people through the Oregon Recreation Parks Association really made a difference in my ability to understand what it was that I was about to do, understand the bigger field of parks and recreation, and just then be able to have people to call on and say, hey, how did you solve this problem? Or how did you solve that problem? Or what did you do differently? How could I approach this? And it was just really, really helpful. So.
And when you say, when you graduate college and you kind of come into the real world, it's kind of a shock. What were some of the shocking things that you realized that you really had to get up to speed on?
Yeah, I think one of the things that was most fascinating, I went out and I raised some money, right? I asked somebody for, I think, $5,000 to help sponsor an event. And my assumption was, is I had that somewhere that check was deposited in a checking account, and I could just go write a check. And I was naive to the procurement process. I was naive to the various cash handling processes that existed, and that may have been my own ignorance at the time. Just like, okay, well, I wouldn't raise this money, and it may not have been 5 grand. It may have been like $500, but I really don't remember. But at the end of the day, like, there was a process to receive those funds and then spend those funds, and um, I wasn't ready for that. So I had this money that I got, and I gave it to the finance department, and then they appropriated the funds, and then I was able to do what I needed to do, buy supplies and materials. But I think it's just something that is not really talked about, is the minutia of getting something done. And so I quickly had to learn, money in does not equal immediate money out. There's, when we do accrual accounting in local government, you accrue revenue and then you accrue expenses, right? Or you expend the money. It's not cash accounting, which is what we're used to, like in our personal life, where I get paid every month and I have a paycheck, and then it comes more or less out of the same pot.
Mm.
In the public sector, you accrue funds into your revenue, and then you accrue expenses on your expense side, and the two oftentimes aren't connected. And so I think that's something that it was on the job training. But I
Yeah.
remember that lesson very distinctly. So
It seems like, at least through all the people that I've interviewed, that the accounting side of Parks and Rec seems to be the least understood, and the thing that has to be shored up the most, because so many people are coming from like the sports side or the park and green space side, and their heart's all in it and they're passionate about it. But then they still have to run these organizations that need a financial brain, and to have these plans and these master plans and stuff. And so, what did you do to kind of shore up, or were you kind of a natural at that, or is that something you had to really learn?
yeah, no, I think it's something I've had to learn, and interesting. I've had to learn it over and over and over again. I've worked in multiple agencies, and each agency does it differently. And I think there's reasons for it, right? It's all about integrity, checks and balances. And I think when you're spending public dollars, there's double scrutiny as to how you're spending that dollar, because it's an obligatory tax, right? I don't get to choose whether or not I pay my property taxes. Either I pay my property taxes or I don't. If I don't, they take my property. And
Mhm.
so because of that connection, there's a higher level of scrutiny. And so with that higher level of scrutiny comes more processes in order to make sure that you're spending those dollars properly. And so there's the budget process, there's the procurement process, there's cash handling processes. There's all these processes that are in place to ensure integrity and accountability, and they can trip you up or they can be your best friend. And I think anytime I've went to a new job, learning the procurement process and also learning the legal process are two processes that are really critical to help your success. So
Mm.
I think, you take a new job. I think reading the charter, reading the code of ordinances is really helpful to understand both what can you do and how can you do it, because you already have the why. You already know why you love what you do, but it's the how and the what that oftentimes trip people up.
Mm.
And so I definitely encourage, people who, when they switch organizations or they go to a new place, to really ask questions. Make sure that the Department of Law and the Department of Procurement are your best friends, because those will be the places you get tripped up in trying to execute on the why and kind of why we love doing Parks and Recreation. So.
Now, do you think as these organizations get older and older that is there a danger in having too much checks and balances to where now you need like 13 signatures to buy something for $1,000? Or, is what does it look like when they go too far? And have you found any efficiency gains to help out legal and accounting to not make everything so much friction involved with moving capital through your organization?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times it's easy to blame procurement, right? Well, it's stuck in procurement or it's stuck in the Department of Law. I think sometimes it's also convenient, right? Because maybe we didn't check a box or maybe we didn't do a step. And so I'll just be the first one to say it's not always procurement's fault. It's not always the Department of Law's fault. You have to be introspective. Like, you have to be accountable for doing your job and meeting those, kind of going through the hoops. But at the end of the day, yeah, sometimes it can be onerous. But so as long as we have bad actors and we have individuals that are taking advantage of the system to either, ingratiate their friends, their neighbors, their families, we will always need to have processes in place to prevent that from occurring. And so, if men were angels, we wouldn't need government. I think James Madison said that. And I think because men are not, men and women aren't angels, then we have to have these checks and balances. And I think that's just a challenge of being human, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, all right. So moving on from accounting, what?
We were talking about Parks and Recreation, right?
Oh, I know. But this is an area I just a little bit more on accounting. It's just an area that I feel like a lot of time holds people back, especially when it comes to finding other sources of revenue. Maybe we can speak a little about that. What are some of the other sources of revenue outside of the traditional property tax, or maybe even outside of grants? But how have you found ways to creatively get more revenue into your department?
Yeah, I think a number of different ways. I think one thing that I've tried to do is just not worry about who gets the credit or where the money goes. I think oftentimes, we can think that, well, the money needs to come to my department so I can spend it, so I can control it. At the end of the day, if the money is being spent in your community, the money is benefiting your community. It's benefiting your neighbors. It's benefiting your team, your program, your entity. So at the end of the day, I focus on how do I get the money to my community? And if it goes to a nonprofit, if it goes to a conservancy, if it goes to another entity, but the money is required to be spent on a program in my community, I'm good. So for instance, I was with the city of Westminster and I wrote a grant for a local nonprofit. They didn't have the capacity to write the grant. They had a very small team, but I had the time, I had the ability to write that grant. So I wrote the grant. The money went to that nonprofit, but as part of the grant requirement, they were required to spend the money in the city of Westminster. One, it helped them build capacity because now they had the resources to hire staff, to do some invoicing, there was somewhat of a capacity building grant. But then they were required to do a summer food program, and it hired promotores to be community health workers and to encourage people to come out to our free summer lunch program. It helped break down the language barrier. We didn't have the capacity at the time to do that. But at the end of the day, the money came back to the city of Westminster. It helped us to provide a viable summer lunch program. I think similarly here in Atlanta, we have a group called Park Pride, which is our nonprofit. And, at the end of the day, if they get $1, that dollar I know is going to be spent in the Department of Parks and Recreation on, one of our local parks, on a local program. And so anything I can do to help them raise funds means I have to spend less of a public dollar on that park or on that program, and I can spend that in an area of our community that may not have the capacity to raise those funds. Because we have to be honest, like there's certain parts of our community that can raise money and there's certain parts that can't. So if I can use $1 that I get through taxes or through property taxes, I can use that in the community that doesn't have the capacity to raise funds, then that helps everybody move our system forward, which I think is really good.
Yeah. Okay, so I think the reason we were talking mostly about money is because I just finished going over my balance sheets and my P&Ls for the year. It's all in my head. My brain was just stuck there. Okay, so I'd like to spend the rest of our show to talk about leadership, and maybe you can just give a simple definition of how you look at leadership. How would you define leadership, specifically in Parks and Recreation?
Yeah, I tend to think of leadership in terms of the situation that you're leading in, or situational leadership. So I think it borrows from both servant leadership, transformational leadership, and on some level, command and control and hierarchical leadership. There's times where you're in crisis, where you need to centralize leadership. You need to get information out very quickly. And so you tend to rely on more command and control leadership. And on some level, empowering individuals to make decisions when you're in a crisis. So for instance, you have COVID, there's a lot of unknowns. You kind of test different things based on the information you have, but you set your team up, allowing them or giving them grace, knowing that the information you share on Monday may be different on Friday. And so you have to think of ways to build in resilience. You have to think of ways to help staff understand change management. So for that instance, in the city of Seattle, where I was at during COVID, we would have, I think we had, weekly meetings. And I think we got to a point where we even had daily meetings where information would be shared, and then I would share it as quickly as possible with the team. That level of transparency reduced confusion, it reduced anxiety, it helped improve just confidence in us as leaders. And so in that environment, transparency is really critical. So then I think you take where you may not be in crisis, right? Or you aren't managing a crisis. And I think you have servant leadership. So where you're working with your team to develop a mindset of servant leadership. So as your leader, I'm here to care for you. I'm here to help you achieve your goals, both professionally and personally. So if you want to be the best, park maintenance supervisor you can be, then I need to, as a leader, develop programs and resources to help you achieve that goal, which I know in the end will pay dividends and help our community be the best it can be. So we developed a supervisor prep program here at the city of Atlanta to help new leaders understand, hey, this is what I need to do in order to be a supervisor. Because people will raise their hand and say, hey, I want to be a supervisor. I want to be paid more. I want more esteem. And so, but we may not provide them the opportunities. So me and another staff member, we work together and we produce a monthly get together. We have about 15 to 20 people that come, and all it is about how do you get ready to be a supervisor. We don't promise anybody anything. You don't take this class and you become supervisor. This is about how do you become a better person so you can lead people in the future. So in my mind, that's a good example of servant leadership, of just you're creating an opportunity for people to gain the skills so that they can be ready for that next opportunity. And you're serving them by building in, opportunities for them to try on new ideas around leadership and to develop new leadership skills. And so I think that's, when I think about leadership, I think about thinking about strategy, thinking about what your team needs, and then working collectively with your team to either provide it, resource it, or identify someplace else, somebody else to provide it in order to help your team do the best they can.
Yeah. And so as we kind of go through those different forms of leadership, which one did you kind of, I don't know, I know they all kind of blend together, but is there one that you kind of leaned into heavily that you prefer?
Yeah, I think for me, oftentimes it's transformational leadership that I tend to lean on. And I was thinking about this the other day, like, I enjoy, working in an environment where there may be issues or challenges, and you're kind of brought in to solve things and provide solutions. So, and with the city of Seattle, unfortunately, the prior director of recreation was let go, and there's just a lot kind of surrounding that dismissal, and so it was a difficult environment to come into, but it was one that provided a lot of opportunity. And so a book that I've leaned on heavily in the past is a book called You're in Charge Now What? And it kind of walks you through this transitional process of coming into an organization, building relationships, building credibility. And so I used kind of basically the 5 questions that they suggested in this book is, what's working well? What's not working well? What do you hope I do? What are you concerned I'll do? And what advice do you have for me? And those 5 questions, I took the time and I went each of my direct reports, I asked those questions of, and then each of the recreation centers, I was the director of recreation. So each of the recreation centers and each of the work groups I would go to, and I just asked those 5 questions, what's working well? What needs to be improved? What are you concerned I do? What do you hope I do? Right. And that gave me a lot of information. Then I took that information, I put it into a report. And that report then was the guiding document that we used to address, my leadership team used to address issues that we had within the department or within the division of recreation, related to communication, programming, ability, transparency, and communication. So after that, I committed to writing a weekly email. So I wrote a weekly email highlighting different things that were happening in the department, what I was working on, what I was thinking about. It gave me an opportunity to share, any information, and it was sent all levels of the organization, just as a way to get transparency and communication out in a manner that was relevant, but also personal. And so I did that through COVID, did that as long as I was at the city of Seattle. And that was really helpful to help transform the organization as well, because it was my opportunity to directly communicate to the team. It wasn't being filtered. It was my words. I had to be accountable for my words too. So if I said something that didn't sit well, I had to own that. I had to correct that. I had to maybe adapt how I was communicating. But it was a way that I could get directly to the team and just provide that clarity.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, when it comes to transformative leadership, maybe speak about how you transform an organization, and then versus how do you transform like the individual members of your team?
Well, all you can do is control your attitude and how you show up. And at the end of the day, I can't control anybody, right? And so I think about what's my mindset? How am I showing up? What's my attitude? What's my temperature? Am I creating a positive environment where people feel supported, where they feel that they get feedback? At the end of the day, I can't even control what my supervisor does or say, right? And so I think the more that I think about leadership, the more I think about just the personal disciplines of, how I show up at work, what I bring to work, and that then influences people either positive or negative. So if I'm having a bad day and, I'm bringing my bad attitude to work, people are going to pick up on that. If I have a great day, people are going to pick up on that. So your job is to try to be as even keel as possible, right?
Right.
Provide feedback, and again, we're human, so that's difficult. But on your bad days, you apologize, you take ownership of it. On your good days, you give credit and you encourage your team. But the goal is to be consistent, so people know that you are consistent. Because consistency is key in organizations. So I think as humans, we really desire consistency. Ironically, even as everything around us changes, like the weather changes frequently, our bodies change as we age and grow older. Things are constantly changing, but for whatever reason, we're constantly grasping for this idea of consistency. And so the more a leader can be consistent, I think the more credibility that leader has in an environment that is constantly changing, and the more stability humans, I think, see, or individuals see that organization. So I think just supporting your team, by being positive, by being encouraging, I think that's the best thing a leader can do is to show up and being consistent. Not just showing up when things are going bad, not just showing up when things are going good, but being consistent and being present, and then being authentic and listening, be encouraging, recalling things that, kind of different factoids that you may remember about people, and building on that common ground, I think is really important.
Yeah. So what's your secrets around being present? I know sometimes we get distracted by, whether something in the future we're worried about or regret over something in the past. How do you kind of stay, present when you're in front of your team or just when you show up?
Yeah, well, I think it's about values and kind of back to your who are you at your core, right? And so I think for me, I think about how my focus is just making sure that people are encouraged, that they know that what they're doing has meaning and value and purpose. And so I try to just remind the team of that. I think also remembering that even when things are good, they're going to be bad at some point. When things are bad, they're going to be good at some point. So the goal is to not be really excited one way or the other. And I heard the other day about this Chinese parable about how, this man, his horse ran away, and his neighbors came out to him and said, "Oh man, your horse ran away." And he said, "Well, maybe." And then his horse came back and it brought 7 horses, and his neighbor came out and they were like, "Oh man, you got 7 horses. How exciting is that? You got these 7 new wild horses. This is really cool." And the guy said, "Well, maybe." Then the next day, his son was riding one of the horses, and his son fell off and broke his leg. And all of his neighbors came back and said, "Man, your eldest son, he broke his leg. How sad is that?" And he said, "Well, maybe." Then the next day, the generals all came and they were conscripting young men to be a part of the army, and his son didn't get picked because he had a broken leg. And so all the neighbors came out and said, "Man, how fortunate are you that your son wasn't picked, And he said, "Maybe." And I shared that with my team the other day. We were at a senior leadership retreat. And I think it's interesting because I think oftentimes we can get excited when things are high, and we can get excited when things are low. But at the end of the day, it's always maybe, right? and because I think anything has opportunity in it. And so as a leader, our goal should be to point to that opportunity, whether it's a deficit that we're being faced or a budget crunch, that can be an opportunity. Whether you have a surplus, that can be opportunity. And so as a leader, how are we helping our team to see the opportunity that exists in front of us? Not as a point of either, joy or go really high or go really low, but how do we see it consistently as an opportunity to move our mission forward? And so I think that's something I'm learning. It's something that I think strongly about as a value for me is like, how do I show up and just hold things on some level loosely, not get excited when a staff member comes to me and say, oh man, I got in a car accident. Well, okay, well, I'm sorry you got in a car accident. We'll fix it. Let's move forward. As opposed to, oh, you're an idiot. What were you thinking? Like, that's not going to help anybody, right?
Right.
Or at the end of the day, like, hey, we got $1 billion, we got $15 million. That's really exciting. It is really exciting. And that means that we're going to have to think about how do we structure the work? Like, does that mean that we have enough staff to do that work? Or, what does that mean for our organization? And it could be positive, but also could be really challenging sometimes when you get a big influx of cash. So,
yeah. As you were speaking, I was thinking how you can look at a storm or rough seas be an obstacle when you're trying to just get from point A to point B. But if you're a captain trying to train skilled sailors, storms are great opportunities. It's in those rough moments that you really have great opportunities to find strength you didn't realize you had because you didn't need it until that moment. Maybe with that in mind, how do you use kind of some of these challenging moments to really stretch the team and show the team, that they can do more than they think they can?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is not get mad at the storm, right? The storm is just the storm. And
Right.
So you can't get mad at the storm. You can't get mad at the waves. I think what you got to do is you got to adjust your sails, right? So you have to think about, okay, if I'm facing this challenge in this moment, what do we need to do differently? Do we need to reduce resources? What can we do proactively to own the moment, not control it, but own the moment as it is now, recognizing that a week, a month, a couple months, it may be different. So again, how are you setting your team up for resilience? How are you helping them understand that things will constantly change, but you can count on me to communicate to you when they do change, how they're going to change and what that means for you. I think that's the best thing we can do as leaders when there's, rough seas is trim the sails, look for where the opportunity is, but then also communicate as quickly as possible what that means and how that'll impact and what the opportunity is.
Love that. Okay, so we flew past the halfway point, not even realize it. So I want to play a quick commercial about our, so we're steadily building and committing ourselves to building a morning show on facilities maintenance. We've got a couple other guys that are going to help us continue to build this thing out. But what we wanted to do is build a show for those roughly about half of the population in Parks and Rec is on the maintenance side of the equation. And so if we think there's not enough content about in general Parks and Rec, there's even less content for the facility and maintenance side. So I made a little promo for this show. It's a 10:30 a.m. show, Eastern, Monday through Thursday. And then after that, I'm going to promote our Young Professionals Network show, which is now moved to Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern, run by our two interns, Michael and Aiden Tyranny. So play that and come right back.
Behind every thriving park, every safe playground, every event-ready field, there's a team working before sunrise and long after sunset. This is Facility Maintenance, the only show created for and by the unsung heroes of Parks and Recreation. Brought to you by DPRS Media Co., where real work gets real recognition. From restrooms to rec centers, HVAC to turf tech, we go beyond the job site into the heart of operations that keep our communities moving. Our mission? To elevate maintenance teams through stories, solutions, and shared experience. Our vision? A world where every facility crew is seen, valued, and fully supported. Each episode features operators, innovators, and leaders, sharing tools, tech, and tactics that make the impossible look easy. Facility maintenance isn't just a job. It's purpose, it's passion, and now it's a show. Facility Maintenance, where tools meet purpose, where work becomes legacy. On the Daily Parks and Rec Show, we bring you the real stories of tomorrow's professionals, people shaping the future, one idea at a time. Meet the very first DPRS interns to officially host their own segment, Aidan Tierney and Michael Morrow. With curiosity, passion, and a fresh perspective, they're stepping into the spotlight to lead meaningful conversations with today's rising leaders. The Young Professionals Network takes you inside the journeys, challenges, and major wins of young individuals making their mark across industries. From first jobs to bold ventures, every story fuels growth, ambition, and innovation. Each episode brings real conversations, fresh perspectives, and impactful insights created to motivate the next generation of professionals. Whether you're just starting out, exploring new paths, or figuring out your next move. Tune in to the Young Professionals Network every Thursday at 5 p.m. only on the Daily Parks and Rec Show. Don't miss it, because your next big idea might be one story away.
All right, so I was reading over our notes when we spoke. Seemed like forever ago now, but what you said was we put busy on a pedestal instead of action and results. Can you say a little more about that?
Yeah, I think we've all had that moment where you ask somebody how their day's going, and they say busy, right? And it's almost like the response that people expect now. And so I think oftentimes, like, I'll get asked, so are you, how's it going? Are you really busy? I'll be like, maybe, it's all relative, right? My busy is different than your busy. Your busy is different than the next person's busy. Busyness is relative as it relates to just the work that we're working on. And I think, I don't know, I know for me, like, it's a lazy answer. And I just oftentimes say it just to move the conversation forward. But in reality, it's like, I don't know, maybe I'm busy, maybe I'm not.
Okay, so what's, in light of all that me and you have picked up through Michael Singer and stuff like that, what would be the most ideal answer if we were really living right?
I think the most authentic answer would be, I'm working on a lot and I'm really enjoying what I'm working on, right? And I'm working on, building supervisor prep for my team, or I'm working on bringing, new restrooms to the city of Atlanta, or we're working on acquiring more property, or, we're working on year-end stuff, right? Like, that would be the most authentic answer. But I think the socially acceptable answer is busy.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those things that make me laugh.
Yeah, I was thinking about saying I'm using the unfolding of life to raise my awareness to a higher being or something like that.
Yeah, then people might walk away from you, though.
People would think, okay, he's lost it. He's on drugs now.
Either that, or maybe you're about to proselytize to him, right?
Right.
But try it out. See how it goes. Like,
yeah,
let's
see.
do a man on the street thing. Like, you could just go and we could, hey, Craig, how you doing today? Oh, I'm busy, right? Like, that's what you get. And I think,
that is what you get.
Hey, Justin, how you doing? And like, the socially acceptable answer is, oh, I'm good, or oh, I'm busy. Not, oh man, I'm having a really hard day. Like, this, and this happened. Because then you see people like go blank, I think, sometimes when you say that, because they're like, oh, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
We can do better.
In reality, life is always changing. Life is change. And even if you're maybe evolving and becoming, more enlightened or better or stronger or something, even if you're not doing that, then you're in some type of protection mode where you're running from what you're afraid of. But either way, you're changing, whether you're running away from something or you're running towards something. I don't think any of us can get out of the ever-changing aspect of life. How do you help people navigate in a healthy way? It's kind of like saying, waves are always in an ocean. They're always there. They're always coming at you.
Yeah.
And there's peaks and valleys, there's storms and there's calm days, but don't ever wish for no storms if you're sailing across the Pacific. That's just not going to be a reality.
Well, you want the wind too, right?
Yeah, you need it all. And that's all the exciting part of life. I don't know. Life would be kind of boring, I guess, if it was just still water constantly with the zero change. I don't know if I'd want to live that life.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about empathy, and I think it's about understanding that we're all having this human experience. We're all have, whether you have a family or you don't have a family, you have things, you have obligations, right? You have people that depend on you. You have experiences outside of work. And I think the more that we can understand that in the context of work, I think the more people will be able to bring kind of their whole self to work. And so, I'll bring my son to events and he'll sit in the back and read his book or be on his iPad, and other people will bring their kids to events. Like, we need to normalize that. So as long as it doesn't take away from your ability to do the event or do the activity, and there are rules, against that, which need to be there, because you can't have just any random kids sitting at a front desk, like, man, while you're trying to do your job. But
Right.
I think we can create appropriate spaces for that to occur. And I think it's also important that we recognize that people have, parents that they're caring for, kids that they're caring for, pets that they're caring for, partners that they're caring for. And yes, the job is important, and we need to provide people with that opportunity. And so that's where I think, back to the conversation about busyness, that's where I focus on results, right? So if you're assigned a task, are you achieving that task? Yes or no? That is a fact that you can agree to with that other person. Like, your responsibility is to complete this map. Did you complete that map? Yes. Okay, great. Then you're done with it. Thank you for doing that. Great job. If you didn't complete the map, then I might need you to stay a little bit longer. I might need you to put in a little extra time, or you might need to be focused, or you may not be able to have that conversation at the water cooler. But if we focus on the task, that is something that is a fact that I can look at. Did you complete it or not? Yes or no. But if you tend to focus on the human side of it, of, are you, did you do something different? Like, did you do it my way, or did you do it the quote right way? Then that's debatable. That's an opinion, not a fact.
Yeah. Okay. So as a leader, oftentimes you find yourself going way far down these rabbit holes and finding like just these gold nuggets. And maybe, how do you package that? Or how have you successfully packaged that and brought that back to your team, especially sometimes when you're so far down and it was such a journey for you, and maybe you're a sprinter, so you can get down there fast, but then you come back to your 500-600 people that are at all different stages and maybe not at your level of leadership. How do you make some of the leadership information digestible for your whole team and not make sure and don't leave them behind?
Yeah, I think you have a conversation. So one of the things we do at our senior leadership team meetings, and I'll admit we haven't been as disciplined these last couple as I have in the past, but every week or every other time we get together, we would bring an article, and it would be the responsibility of the person who was assigned that week to identify the article, whether it's from Harvard Business Review, Muse. There's a whole bunch of different sites. It could be an article, or it could be a TED Talk. And the person that was assigned, they'd have to bring a TED Talk, and they'd have to bring questions. And I think that's just a simple way that you can infuse and bring to light leadership topics that then have a benefit related to what you're working on as a team. So if you're dealing with change management, have somebody bring a change management article. You read it as a team and then debate it, right? Hey, what did you get out of it, Doug? Or what did you get out of it, Sue? Or what did you get out of it, Hamir? Have a conversation about what you learned, and you're going to learn something as a leader. They're going to learn something as a leader, and you're going to build that teamwork. It takes, we just spend 20 minutes out of a meeting. Our meetings are an hour and a half for that team, but you have to commit to leadership practice. And by that, I mean, you have to commit to learning. You have to commit to doing that as a leader. And I think that's really important. So another thing I've done is I bought a book for all my whole leadership team. I gave it to them. I know they have it. I can't, again, force people to read the book, but I gave it to them, and I said, hey, read this and let me know what you think. And people have come up and said, oh yeah, I read it. I thought about this. But that's why I like kind of reading articles in a meeting, because when you assign something that maybe you feel extracurricular, people may or may not read it. But if you assign it in a meeting and then you create space for everybody to read the article, you're doing something in a community, and you're doing something that's together. And I think that's where the real power comes, is when you do things together. The other thing I like to see is we don't practice leadership skills either. So oftentimes we'll throw a leader, you did good work as a park supervisor, you did good work at a recreation center, and now you're going to be a supervisor. Well, did we train that person to be a supervisor? Oftentimes we don't. And so how do we help people practice leadership, just like we help people practice baseball, soccer, football? Where do you create that opportunity? And so, at a city I worked in, we did, as part of our senior leadership team meetings, we would just do batting practice. And so we would pair up and you would have to give that other person feedback. So, pretend that I'm an employee that missed, 3 days in a row coming in on time. Give me feedback. And you just habituate giving people feedback. So it's not so scary when you get in that situation and now you have an employee that you have to give feedback to because they had been late 3 or 4 times. And so just as we practice for things that we really want to be good at, we have to, if we really want to be good at leadership, we have to practice leadership. So that means you need to take swings, you need to get pitches in, you need to throw some balls, you need to throw some strikes, you need to practice leadership. And oftentimes we're practicing leadership on the fly. We aren't practicing leadership in a safe environment so that when we are on the fly, we're doing it, in a way that is safe and competent. And so I think the more that we can do as leaders to create those spaces for our frontline supervisors or our frontline team to develop those skills, the better off our organizations are going to be because we're practicing leadership just as we practice football, baseball, or soccer, or volleyball. And I think that's something that's really missing. And so we did a leadership training program. We've had to since sunset it, but we met weekly with a company called LeaderGov. They had these teamwork summits that were really helpful. They were just kind of snippets of leadership that we would, doses of leadership, if you will, that we would give to our team. They'd have them at their tailgates. So once a month, they'd be required to read it. We'd read it at our senior leadership team. So we were all hearing the same thing about emotional intelligence, change management, giving feedback, but it was consistent. And the whole intention was repetition and leadership development.
Let's talk a little bit about that emotional intelligence. I know it seems less of a buzzword than it was a few years ago, but I still think it's something that we all want to not leave underdeveloped. Maybe just define what do you consider emotional intelligence or EQ?
Yeah. Well, so what's interesting is as part of supervisor prep, we did a segment on emotional intelligence, right? And so I think it's the ability to kind of read and perceive other people's kind of signals or cues related to what they're going through at the time, right? So if I see somebody and they have a sad face, I'm able to pick up on, hey, they're sad. Or it's also emotionally intelligent. If somebody's not, if you have a high performer and their performance has declined, instead of saying, hey man, why aren't you doing your job? You used to be able to do X, now you're doing Y, what's up? Going to them and say, hey, I've noticed that your performance has fallen off. Is everything okay? And I think it's being able to stop, pause, not blame that individual, but understand the situation that they may find themselves in. And having empathy is what emotional intelligence is.
All right. Can you define empathy?
Oh man, put me on the spot. Live on camera, right? When I think of empathy, I think of being able to understand or being able to feel the emotions that the other person is feel without kind of taking that emotion on, right? It's never your emotion, but it's putting yourselves in that individual's shoes and kind of expressing empathy, like expressing care, expressing love, expressing compassion.
Yeah.
Whereas sympathy is like, oh yeah, I'm sorry you feel that way, right? That's not empathy. Like you aren't kind of being in it with that other person. So.
And how does that serve those relationships when they see that you're empathetic, when you're able to kind of put yourself in their shoes emotionally? How has that served you?
Yeah, I think when I'm able to kind of lean in and listen to kind of what people are going through, I think it provides a level of comfort, it provides a level of authenticity, and it provides a level of just compassion and care for that person. Like they know that I see them. The other day there was a woman, I didn't know who she was, but she was sitting next to me at this event and she was having a panic attack. And, I understood that she was kind of in it. And so I said, hey, do you want me to help you kind of get to a safer space? So I let her take my arm and she went to this other room. And then there was some other people there that kind of provided that care for her. But it was important that, you see something and you do something. It's one thing to see something like, oh yeah, somebody else got that. Well, you're that somebody else. Like you need to step up. And so I think that's where empathy comes into play is like I understood that she was going through a moment that she needed support. And so I extended my arm, offered her the support to help her out of the space. And then that allowed other people to care for her too. And I think that's empathy, right? You're seeing the humanity that is next to you, and you're choosing to act and support that person.
Mm. Okay, so two other questions. I'm hoping we can squeeze both these in. But you had mentioned about Parks and Rec has to compete with the click media. Maybe say a little more about that.
Mentioned that Parks and Rec has to compete
With the click media,
yes.
like social media and
Yeah. So I think how many of us have been sitting at home and an hour goes by, and all that you were doing that hour was sending memes back and forth to your partner or to your best friends. Like, that's what we're competing against, is that quick hit of dopamine. And so I believe that as human beings, it's essential for us psychologically, physically, to connect with nature frequently, right? So whether you're walking in a park, whether you're walking on a trail, and I also recognize that there's a level of privilege that comes with that, if depending on the safety of that park. Do you have lights? Is there a sidewalk? And so I think in Parks and Recreation, we have to be very explicit about making sure that our parks are safe, that they're clean, that they feel comfortable for everyone, that they're absent of gun violence, and that we're coordinating with our rangers and our safety coordinators to make sure that they're safe so that people can be in those spaces. But if we don't do that, then people are going to stay home and choose the more safe option, which may be, scrolling through their phone or looking at the latest, Kim Kardashian show. And that's what we're competing against. So people have the time. We just have to help reduce the friction between them participating in our activities versus participating in, the other more electronic options. Because those are they're very frictionless. Like, everybody has a phone in their pocket. Everybody walks around with the TV screen now. So it's really easy to pick that up. We have to make Parks and Recreation easy to pick up. We have to make it as convenient as possible. And that's difficult.
Yeah. And so if you look at the click media, how it has that constant dopamine hit, and you can just get a hit every 30 seconds or something, and it's easy to share, it's in your pocket, it's always accessible. Okay, so what are the strong points of Parks and Recreation? What are some of the things that we have to offer that can kind of start to counter that?
So one thing is this stormwater park right here, right? This park captures stormwater. It reduces flooding. It cleans, improves water quality. And I think that's a way that we can generate non-traditional revenue by working with the Department of Watershed or Stormwater to capture rainwater. So that's a value proposition that is different than social media, right? So we have to think about, how are we providing summer lunches to young people so they have a place to be that's safe and get access to healthy food. We have to think about, how are we helping people produce social media? Like, if they love social media and they want to do social media, how do you help people produce that media? So our team program, we're creating like these maker spaces where kids can make their own products and they can make their own content. That way they can be the content creators. They don't just see it and consume it, but they can create it.
Yeah.
So I think those are things that we can do to help people see themselves within the media and see themselves within the space, is help them create that content.
That's a great idea. Where did y'all get that from, and how long have you been doing that?
Yeah, no, Nick Clark and our Atlanta team leader team, they've been doing a phenomenal job. I know they gave a presentation at the National Recreation Parks Association as well as at Georgia Recreation Parks Association. So you can go online, download their information. Also follow ATL team leaders on Instagram, and they produce a lot of the content the teams do. We also have a videographer and a content creator that helps us kind of promote our different activities and what we do and how we do it. But Nick and the team do a great job.
Man, I'd love to do a special show just on them. Because
you should. That'd be great.
You have to help me connect with them, because I'm always trying to encourage people to make content, not just to consume it. It really is quite an art form, and it takes many, many years and swings at the plate to get good at it. And so, if you are at all have any talent, whether speaking or creating in any way in the digital format, I really think that is just a great artistic expression. And there's so many, like Parks and Rec in general, that need good content creators for this industry. All right. So I think the last question I'll be able to ask is, how do we help people to be social? And this is something that as much as we're connected, through social media, it almost, in a real live environment, it's almost like we're not as good at connecting in person, maybe because we're so connected and we don't have those interpersonal skills. But how do we help people to develop those interpersonal skills and to become more social?
I think give an authentic answer. I think when we were talking about busy and not busy, I think we connected because I gave an authentic answer, right? I think you asked me a question and then that just opened up a rabbit hole to us talking about a lot of different topics, right?
Mhm.
And it hasn't stopped. I think of another time I was in New York recently and I gave an authentic answer to somebody and now we're still connected. Typically it would have been one of those one and done, you're on a panel together and then you go your separate ways, but he and I still email each other now or text each other, right? And so I think it's when we are authentic, that's what breeds that social connection. And so the more that we can show up, give an honest answer, not say busy, not celebrate busy, I think the better off we're going to be as individuals, better off we're going to be as a community. So whether it's giving a smile, saying hello to somebody, but going that next layer when it's obviously socially appropriate, but maybe even when it's not, just let people know how you're doing. People want to help. I think that's the biggest thing too, is like, people want to help other people be successful despite what we think about other human beings. And I found that over and over again that when I ask for help or when I ask, people respond. And I think and it's not in situations where I have power, like as the commissioner of Parks and Rec, like it's in situations where I'm at a restaurant and I think something could be different. And I say, hey, would this be okay versus that? Or it's, be bold, right? That's what I encourage people to do. Ask for what you need and the universe typically responds. But when we don't ask, you don't get. So
Yeah, the ask is such a powerful,
yeah.
gosh, and when you get used to it of just being open and asking, like you said, people generally want to help if they can. And even if you just ask, hey, can you help me with this? I don't even know if you can help, but here's what we're up against. And you're just shocked at how much people, and you never would have known if you just didn't ask. Where did you kind of learn that, or when did you learn that?
I think I remember my dad telling me something about how when he was starting out as a stockbroker, in order to get clients, like he had this game that he would play where he would have like a stack of coins on his desk and he had to make 25 calls, cold calls, basically recognizing that of those 25 calls, maybe he'd get 5 pickups. Of those 5 pickups, maybe he'd get 1 client. And so I thought about it in that terms of, the more I ask, the more opportunities I have, the more I raise my hand, the more opportunities I have. Those opportunities, whether I take an opportunity or not, is up to me, but I'm not going to have those opportunities if I don't at least raise my hand or if I don't ask. Right. And so I think that's when I think about it in those terms of, my dad starting out as a financial planner and cold calling people, and that helped me understand that you have to make the ask. If you don't make the ask, you don't have the opportunity.
Right.
And the goal is to have as many opportunities as possible, so you get to pick the one that you like and that you want to be a part of. Otherwise, you're just stuck with what you get.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of those old gold mines where they have to dig up so many tons of ore to get the little ounce of gold. And so it really is just a numbers game, and if you're just, expecting an ounce of gold out of a little bucket of dirt, then, you get the work appropriate.
Yeah.
All right. So we have a little tradition, where my previous guest left you a question.
Uh-oh.
And, this comes from, Ken Wilson over in New Braunfels, Texas.
Okay.
And his question to you is, what advice would you give your younger you?
Keep raising your hand. I think that's the thing that has helped me the most is asking for opportunity. Even when I was overwhelmed, even when I thought I was doing too much, it was, volunteering to put together the presentation that nobody else in the room wanted to put together. It was, taking the assignment that nobody else wanted. It was, pushing through the pain of work in order to achieve that result. Because I think at the end of the day, if you're willing to do things that other people aren't willing to do, then you're willing to do things that other people aren't willing to do. I think that's going to lead to a lot more opportunity. So I think it would be continue to raise your hand.
Yeah.
Continue to say yes, and look for those opportunities. Kind of sort the chaff after that. But if you don't raise your hand, you don't get the opportunity. So
Yeah, 100% agree with that.
yeah.
All right. So what question would you like to leave my next guest?
In a world of inauthenticity, how can you show up more authentically?
Ooh, that's a good one. What's your answer to this question?
I think it just stop saying I'm busy. I think just be real.
Yes, it's definitely, and the thing is, instantly everybody sees right through it. Like they know this.
I think everybody knows it too, but like
Right.
everybody, it was like kind of like the obligatory answer, right?
Right.
You don't want to say you weren't busy, because then people will be like, well, then what do you do all day? Like, do you just sit around?
Right. Well, then it can become this like I caught the bigger fish contest. Like who's busy?
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, I love it. Well, Justin, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Y'all got any Christmas plans, or what are y'all doing?
Yeah, and we're just gonna hang out here in Atlanta during the holiday. It's a great spot to be, and just enjoy family and enjoy each other. So
Yeah.
probably play some soccer, go for some walks, play some
Oh,
video
love it.
games, eat some food. So
All right. What was the name of that guy that did the maker space, or who do you? I'm wondering.
Nick Clark. So I'll put you in touch with him. Yeah.
Clark, and then we probably should do a show together, me, you, and Savvy, just because.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Just be fun. Well, Justin, thank you so much for your time today. I hope you have a great holiday week coming up, and Merry Christmas. And
yeah, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, have a great rest of your week, and thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you. See you later.
Thanks a lot, Justin. Bye. All right. So that was Justin Cutler, a friend of mine now that we've connected. I swear the people I connect with through the Daily Parks and Rec show are just amazing. They've really starting to change my life a lot. Covering this industry and making a media company for this industry, I just get to meet the best leaders, hear their stories, and they almost become like a part of me. When someone shares a book with you or shares insight, you start to ponder, maybe that's something I should incorporate in my life. And Justin's been one of those guys that a lot of times when he speaks, he's just pulling from a wealth of knowledge of men and women that have invested in him. He's sharing it with his team. He shares it with me. I share it with y'all. And it's just one big happy improvement upon all of us. So appreciate your work, Justin, for your team and for the whole industry in general. Look forward to making great content with you in the future. All right. So we are coming up to the end of this year. We got Christmas, I think, on Thursday. Is that right? Christmas Eve is Wednesday, something like that. Yeah. So Merry Christmas to everyone. Then after that, we've got the New Year's 2026. Hopefully everybody had a fantastic 2025. I know I did. This has been one of the most meaningful, purposeful years of my life. 2025 is when I started the Daily Parks and Rec show and built the team, recorded approaching 400 shows, attended lots of state associations, and we're going to do a lot of the same in 2026. We are launching some new shows. The one I really want to highlight is the work that John Prue is doing on the Military Rec show. This is just going to be an amazing show. I mean, all of our shows are really good, and I really love the talented people and hosts that are building these shows out. But I never just realized how much stuff goes on at these military bases in their Parks and Rec departments. And John is really doing a good job of highlighting that. And fingers crossed, he's going to get a very special guest. I don't know if we can make the announcement right now, but it's pretty much one of the biggest guests you could possibly get in the world of Parks and Rec on the military bases, MWR. And so we're going to be doing a lot more promos for that show. Again, this is a Tuesday show, 1:30 p.m. Eastern every Tuesday, starting in January. We had a little teaser last Tuesday. And we had Ari on the show with Deggy Entertainment, and they were just highlighting about how, they have all these headliners, rock bands, country singers, music artists that come in and do these big shows on these military bases and such. And so that was a really good show, but we're going to do more of that kind of stuff for that. And then we're also launching, with the help of Jordan Ziff and Her Sports, the Athletes Commute. That's another show that we're launching. And then us and Outdoor Link are launching a smart city show. So those are 3 new shows that we're launching. Of course, we're still building on the YPN with our 2 interns, Michael Moreau and Aiden Tierney. We've also got our flagship show here. And of course, one of my favorites, Mr. Aaron Locks, is steadily just running our weekly Thursday show all about youth sports. And I will be joining him in the state of California, doing the daily Parks and Rec show live from his booth. And then I actually have a conversation with Steph to talk more about what else we can do with California. So we got a lot of stuff going on. Appreciate all the love and support we've been getting. Appreciate all the hard work that the team has been putting in. It's not just me. I know everybody knows this, but I can't say it enough. Shout out to Jovi and Kathleen, Sherry, Chris, Eunice, Gabriel, Aiden, and Michael. I mean, I could just go on and on. All of our show hosts, Aaron Locks, stuff like that. It's just we've got an amazing team building this, the Daily Parks and Rec Show and DPRS Media Network, and yeah, just can't wait to see what 2026 brings. A lot of exciting stuff. So that's all I have for y'all today. We have our show tomorrow, our leadership series. Wednesday, I think we have 2 shows, and Thursday is like a 3-show day. So exciting week, and hopefully we can crack. I haven't even done the math to see if we'll break 400, but we're very close to 400. This was our 384th episode with Justin Cutler over at City of Atlanta, the Commissioner of Parks and Rec. All right, so that's all I have for y'all today. Thank you for all the love and support. Love you guys. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Welcome to DPRS Media Co., the first media company built for the people behind the Parks and Rec community. We don't just cover on Parks and Rec, we elevate it, we amplify it, we honor it. At the heart of everything we do is one mission: to serve the public servants, the professionals who design, maintain, and lead the parks that shape our communities. Under the Daily Parks and Rec Show, we produce 6 powerful platforms. Leadership in Parks and Rec, a spotlight on directors, superintendents, and visionaries shaping the future of public spaces. Facility maintenance, where the boots hit the ground, a deep dive into the systems, crews, and craftsmanship that keep our parks clean, safe, and beautiful. Young Professionals Network, shining a light on the next generation of Parks and Rec. Students, interns, and mentors sharing how we build a legacy together. Youth Sports Mastery, sponsored by National Academy of Athletics. This series is for coaches, parents, and rec leaders working to make youth sports fun, fair, and meaningful again. The Rec Room, hosted by the passionate leaders of Henry County Parks and Rec. This show brings frontline energy and real-life stories from the field. And the weekly Parks and Rec Post, our official newsletter delivering stories, insights, and community wins every week. We are DPRS Media Co., LLC, a media company with a mission to uplift the professionals who serve every community, every park, every day.